Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Ammar, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we are absolutely thrilled to have Todd Nilson, a seasoned digital strategist and the founder of Clocktower Advisors, a consultancy specializing in building online communities and digital workplaces. With over 25 years of experience, Todd has helped organizations from startups to global brands create engaging digital environments that foster trust, enhance customer loyalty, and drive innovation. His expertise spans community building, marketing strategy, digital workplace transformations, and more. Todd, welcome to Founders Future.
I'm honored to be a guest on the show.
Thank you so much. I am excited to dive in. I always like to take a trip in time, so to speak. So take us back to before you started Clocktower Advisors. What were you doing at that time, and what was really the main motivation behind starting the company?
Yeah, my reasons were intensely personal. I'll say that I'll share them. They're not that personal, but I was working for an agency at the time, and it was a great job. I got to work with a lot of global brands. I got to travel all over the country, working with different kinds of organizations. And I was primarily a strategist and account leader for organizations that needed to build an online community for their brand. So companies like SAP or Plex Systems or Steelcase Furniture, like it really didn't matter. A lot of them were B2B kinds of organizations. Loved the work. The hours were crap, just 60 plus hours a week often. I started to dream in spreadsheets. It was a terrible situation. But I think for me, the inciting incident was that my parents were getting old and frail, and they needed a lot more attention. And they were halfway across the country from me. I'm in Wisconsin, they were in Pittsburgh, and was increasingly feeling like if something happened, it would be very difficult for me to just drop things and go and be with them and help them. And so I made the difficult decision to exit from the company. I did it on good terms, but I don't think the CEO understood at the time that it wasn't about them making accommodations for me. It was about my own, just how I was wired
Mm.
and made up to do the work. And so I had decided there and then that I wanted to stay in the same realm of business, helping organizations set up online communities.
Yeah.
And as a result, when I stepped out, I had an opportunity to do my first contract pretty quickly after that. I was fortunate, the market was good at the time. And I joined up with another consultant based out of London. And in order to set up the business with him, to work with him, I set up my own LLC with the mind to really eventually rolling out my own brand and work that I do. And I've never looked back since then. I've never
Yeah,
regretted the decision to be a solopreneur with the work that I do.
that's awesome. I love that. And I appreciate you for sharing that. It's important to know because a lot of times people are faced with these decisions and it's so much easier to take the more secure route, to take the easier path, the less risky, so to speak. So I guess for you mentioned you never regretted the decision, but in the heat of the moment, were there any mental challenges around making that decision? And if were, how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I think the challenges for me were what was I going to jump to next? Was it going to be enough work for me to do? Like I had worked as a consultant for some time prior to being solo. There's always that mental barrier of, am I going to have enough work to feed me? Am I going to be able
Mm.
to locate enough? And I think that for me, getting that first win, getting momentum, getting the first project went a long way towards overcoming that barrier because then you realize I've done it once, I can do it again. I can repeat this as a success. I can do better every time I make it happen. And I think that was one of the barriers. The other one was there weren't a lot of resources or guidance points for me at that point around setting up a business and what was involved with me incorporating it as an LLC or staying a sole proprietorship or doing an S corp. So there were legal accounting questions around that I didn't know, but those are technical issues that are
Yeah,
you can get past and overcome.
it's figure outable. And today we have ChatGPT, we've got AI. It's ridiculous how easy it is today.
Totally,
To the
totally.
past. So let's fast forward to today, your company, Clocktower Advisors. Who's your main ICP? Who do you love to work with? And then what are the different offers and services that you provide?
Yeah, no, thanks for the showcase. So I work maybe a little more broadly than people might expect. So everybody tells you to niche down. I I've resisted that over the years because I
Mhm.
like the variety of work that's available. So my ideal customers are in one of two big buckets, I'll say. They are either B2B organizations or mid-sized to large nonprofits. And that's served me well over the years. I will say in more recent years, I've been leaning a little more towards the nonprofit side because of all the
Mm,
economic instability in the marketplace.
yeah,
For whatever reasons, they seem to be just a little less crazy than the B2B companies. But I don't really play in the B2C space that much.
got it.
Typically, mid-sized to large organizations will engage with me on the work. And I've mentioned I create online communities. What I'm talking about with that is not big social media platform marketing campaigns. I'm talking about built to purpose enterprise or SaaS-based platforms that perform some of the functions that you would expect of social media, the ability to connect with others, comment, share ideas, share videos, links, cat videos, animated GIFs, that kind of stuff, but within a more protected, cozier environment that's not driven by algorithms that you see in the big online social spaces, like the little community spaces that I deal in, stock and trade, even for very large organizations, tend to be driven by most recent content is bubbled to the top.
Mm,
It's not at such a massive scale that those platforms need to have algorithms that adjust what based on what your interests happen to be.
yeah,
Ideally, everybody who's in those spaces has some common interests already. And so they may join some special private groups or public groups around a special interest to dive in a little bit more deeply. But there's a lot more control in the hands of the user in those kinds of environments than not. So usually I'm hired by like chief marketing officer, chief customer
mm,
success officer, someone like that, or on the nonprofit side, it might be an executive director, it might be somebody that's in charge of membership management or something like that on the nonprofit side. And I'm usually being hired for one of two reasons. One
okay.
is that an organization has decided that they want an online component to enable their community to come together on a more regular
Mm,
basis. And they don't know this, they don't know the risks, they don't know the steps, they don't know how to make that a fast growth environment for them.
yeah,
And so I help to knock down some of the barriers, answer some of the questions, avoid some of the risks involved with doing that. I help them move faster.
got it.
The second reason that someone would work with me or would use my services is if they've started one of these communities, these
Mm,
spaces, and the engagement is just not there. It's just not
mm,
working. And they need me to come in as the doctor to prescribe what's happening here, to diagnose what the issue is, and to help them to figure out a way to get it back to health and sustainability and to be driving the results that they hope it drives.
got
And
it.
so usually these are strategy engagements. They will typically last 3 to 6 months. I'm often kept on as a retainer for indefinite periods after that if there's coaching or additional guidance required. And I can be hired fractionally for work, but that's usually more in the startup space that I
Got
would
it.
do that kind of work.
Got it. I appreciate you breaking that down. You answered a lot of the questions that I was going to follow up with. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Now, I'm curious with you, do you run into any capacity issues simply because it sounds like you're working on each individual client need and is customized and tailored towards whatever their situation is. So do you, when it comes to thinking about scalability of that model, do you run into capacity issues in terms of you can only take on so many? And are you thinking about tweaking it in some way to make it more scalable?
Yeah, so I don't like having more than 3 to 4 customers at a time that I'm working
Got it.
with. So it's unlikely that any customer is saying that they need me for 40 hours a week. It just doesn't work that way. Most customers need me for a couple of hours here and there. They go and work on some stuff. I go and work on some stuff, and we meet up again the next week. So it's not as intensive. It doesn't tend to be as intensive as that. I've never had a customer come to me that says, I need to launch a community in 3 weeks and I need you full time for the next 3 weeks. If they did that, I would be a little worried
Yeah,
about them and their chances for success. It's possible it could happen, but I haven't ever seen it.
got it.
So the things that I'm doing to address that is one of the reasons that I called the company Clocktower Advisors to begin with was that I envisioned it growing beyond just myself, and it has from time to time. Although I like to maintain the flexibility of being the sole employee of my it's now an S corp that I have. I do maintain relationships with and identify on my website a number of advisors who I bring in from time to time on projects. And some of them are longtime colleagues, others I've worked on projects with before. And I know they have deep specialization. One is an amazing PhD in organizational psychology. That's credentials I don't have, but they can come in and
Yeah,
do research work. Another is a gamification expert. Another one is an expert in advocacy programs and customer success. So I think part of it is having the flexibility of having a great network of people that you can lean on who are also set up as independents that you can work in. And so that's one way I address it. The other way is a couple of years ago, I had to come to the realization that I can't do everything myself. And so I've outsourced a lot of my marketing and video live stream work to an amazing virtual assistant, Samickle. Shout out to her, who she's my backstage engineer. She's my guest wrangler. She does a lot of the social post composition and staging up all that stuff for me to look at and approve. And that's been a huge lifesaver for me. I just that's it's not set it and forget it, but I know that she's got that portion of the work, and that does an
sure.
awful lot to free you up cognitively to do stuff that's more in your wheelhouse.
Cool. Let's shift a little bit to the back end of the business. Help us understand the lead generation, the marketing aspect of it. When you want to, and you mentioned you can only take on 3 to 4 clients at a time. Is that
Mhm.
fair to say? Cool. When you think about your customer acquisition process, your lead generation process, what does that look like? What do you have in place? How do you attract people into your ecosystem?
Yeah, I think for the early years of my business, it was almost entirely word of mouth that I just
Mm,
maintained a great network. I've always been of the opinion that you need to be continuously meeting people and talking to them about what they want and what they need,
mm,
understanding how you can help them because those leads come back and pay you in the future. And so I've always taken a long view of that work. And that's continued to be a source of new opportunities. A customer that I worked with years ago is at a new company. They need help with their online community. They bring me in for that work.
yeah,
That's a primary. I would say starting around 2020 or so, I started building a network of partners, community platform providers for the most part, but a couple of other expert agencies and specialty tool providers as well, who have maybe accounted for about 30 or 40% of my new leads that I get.
okay.
And those are great opportunities. They know that they need a consultant with my background and experience, and they'll bring me in for the conversation. And it helps burnish their reputation a little bit as, hey, there's this third party person that can come in and work with you and help you to make the most out of our software or
Yeah.
our platform experience. I've tried a few cold lead generation approaches and have not been charmed with the results that I've gotten out of that. It's just not on brand. And for me, it's all about human connection and direct, empathetic conversation. And so, beyond using tools like Dripify or something like that to build a LinkedIn following so that I can further engage with them, like I've been very uncomfortable with any kind of cold email or LinkedIn message outreach with my work.
I'm curious why that is. And the reason that I ask is because one thing that we talk about a lot on this podcast, especially in the coaching consultant agency space, really it's 80% sales and marketing, and then 20% is the fulfillment, the back end in terms of growing a company. So one concept that we try to hammer home is the power of having a predictable lead generation mechanism, some
Mhm.
sort of machine that you can turn on and off as you need more leads or less leads as the months and years progress. So I'm curious why you don't like the cold outbound, and how you would approach building a predictable lead generation machine.
I appreciate that question. So I'll just say that it hasn't worked for me to my satisfaction, that it's opened doors with people, and maybe it has to do with how niched the work that I do tends to be, but that's not a reason in the experience of maybe some of your other guests that you've had. I'll say that for me, the more reliable pipeline has always been direct networking and connections. So, like what I don't put into cold outreach, I put into membership in professional executive level organizations. So, I'm an active member in Fractionals United, for example, which is a large, diverse group of executive leaders who work fractionally, and they're in a great position to be referrers for me as they have opportunities to come along. And so I feel like the kinds of quality leads that I get from those sources tend to pay off for me a little bit better than trawling the open seas of the internet for those kinds of leads. Not to say that it couldn't work. Maybe I just haven't found the right combination for it yet, but
Yeah,
that's really what's been behind my thinking.
fair enough. What's your vision? So when you think over the next 12 months and really where you want to take the company, what are your top priorities?
Yeah, really, Clocktower has become for me a staging mechanism for some other entrepreneurial efforts that I have going on. So I have a startup called Talent Led, which is really going to be a software platform to help organizations hire more empathetically and humanly than I think the way that recruiting has gone in recent years, and especially with the rise of AI. There's been a definite dehumanizing trend in that process, and really an AI war between candidate AIs or the talent using AI to generate applications, and employer AI, which is really building a moat around
Yeah,
organizations and fending people out of it. A lot of the revenue that I'm building through Clocktower and my consultancy work is going into bootstrapping the prototypes for that app right now. And we'll be going out to the market probably within the next 6 to 12 months to do a capital raise around that work.
nice. Very cool. Do you have an idea of how much that will be? I'm assuming it's just like a monthly SaaS model.
Yeah, we're going to be setting it up as a probably not. Maybe we'll do it as a SaaS monthly. I'd like to do it as an annual subscription model for
Yeah,
organizations. I think it's my view of the month to month work is you're not going to get a return on investment within the first 1 to 3 months
yeah,
anyways. It takes time to get traction. So to offer that, it just gives people who are nervous about it a chance to try it and then say, this isn't working for me, and then run the other direction.
yeah. I get where you're
I'm
coming from.
I'm hopeful that it'll be an annual subscription, software as a service, mobile-based app.
Got it. Do you have an idea of the price point for the annual?
The subscription is probably going to be somewhere in the low to mid five-figure range for
Got it.
that for an enterprise. We're exploring a couple of different models though, where it may be something that there's something born on the side of the candidates as
Yeah,
well, because we want to enable portability of some of the results from using the app. So
yeah,
if you've applied to a company through Talent Led in one app, that you can actually take the results of your assessments and bring them to another organization
yeah.
and use them for yourself.
Very cool. And what do you feel is, as a founder, what do you feel is the biggest challenge you're facing right now?
It's always time management.
Mm,
You're always playing productivity games with yourself, trying to prioritize your day, trying to figure out what needs to be worked on next. And my least favorite day of all is what I call death by 1,000 ping pong balls. You have a bunch of tasks of equal weight. They're all hitting you at once, and you just don't know what to prioritize
yeah,
first.
yeah, I respect that. If you could go back in time and speak to your younger self when you were starting the company and give yourself a piece of advice that you wish you knew at the time. You know it now, but you didn't know it then. What would that be?
So a couple of things. First, the first one that comes to mind is outsource sooner. Recognize and get off your plate the stuff that yes, you can do it, but you don't need to be doing it, just to free yourself up to do more work. The other thing is I wish I'd been a little more aggressive about business development sooner in the game. I think I could have grown the company even bigger by now. if I'd done that. I've done well for myself. I've no complaints. I'm super happy with what I've been able to build over the past almost 10 years. It'll be 10 years in August that I'll have founded the company. But yeah, I think just lean into the work more. Don't be afraid. Put
Yeah,
yourself out there. And I think I could have maybe gone a little further faster if I'd been less cautious about things.
fair enough. What's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Yeah, so I'm very active on LinkedIn every day. Easy, hit me with a message out there. I am happy to reply. If somebody wants to brainstorm about their idea for an online community space, I'm happy to jump on a short call with you to talk through your concept and what you want to build and give you some pointers. Other than that, you can find me on my website. I keep a blog at clocktoweradvisors.com. And I do a bi-weekly live stream up on LinkedIn and YouTube called Talk About Your Community, and a variety of awesome guests on who talk about their experiences with community building, or maybe they're coming from an adjacent field and they've got insights and ideas that people can put into practice right away.
Awesome. I love that. Todd, thank you so much for your time.
Amar, thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Anytime. So that wraps up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. To our listeners, don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you're looking to scale your business and really enhance your sales and marketing efforts, visit closers.io to discover how we can support your growth journey. Until then, keep on climbing.